we will continue our day of inspiration, some learning, some networking. And I want to invite to the Olympic arena my co-panelists and speakers, Luz Ramirez, Jeff New, and Alex Pasek. Wait for them to come up the stage here. We're going to be talking about performance metrics in medical and how they relate to decision making, okay, as well as to how we collaborate internally, our performance management, talent management. So we have an ambitious agenda to connect those dots. Luz Ramirez is a former medical director at Amgen. He has decades of experience in medical affairs, international experience as well, managing operations, medical affairs, leadership. Jeff New. Jeff, how are you? Uh, Digital innovation leader in medical affairs, formerly at Novartis, also decades of experience in operations, leading field medical teams and medical information as well. So, welcome. Uh, as well as Alex Pasek with the foundation of the National Institutes of Health, a trained physician, has strategic partnership experience with some significant progressive roles, including in charitable organizations that are well known, such as the Helmsley Trust Foundation. I'm excited about this conversation here because it's a very timely topic, and it was a taboo topic in medical affairs 3 years ago, and that has changed, I think. I want to invite all of you to look at the web app, okay, which has the poll. We're going to start with a poll. I'm going to make sure I share. So before we get into our discussion, uh, make sure to go to the Hoover app, and there are a few questions that we want to gather from you in terms of the data capturing tools that you currently have. But I want to ask while I'm pulling up the slides, Jeff, would you kind of comment on why why we need to look, to measure performance in different methods today? How do we need to improve our quality of medical performance in this environment, in this very competitive environment? What has changed? Maybe we can
Sure.
start from. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Tim, and great to be here. Nice to see everyone. Yeah, I think one of the things that we struggle with is connecting the activities and initiatives that we undertake in medical affairs with the outcomes that we're wanting to desire. So, we go about doing certain things that we think will result in certain outcomes, but we don't know for sure, or we don't have the ability to demonstrate that it did. And so um, getting more granular, I guess, with how we document and record activities and how they roll up to the outcomes and impacts that we want to have will um, help us demonstrate our value, help us make better decisions.
Yeah. Yes, and you mentioned the details, and I've seen different approaches to measuring performance in a
Hmm.
function which doesn't directly generate revenue. And as I've mentioned to all three of you before, those companies that analyzed performance in great detail and communicated them were the ones that seemed to grow faster, scale, and also be known and recognized by their cross-functional peers. Because to this day, we still run into a lot of leaders within medical, as well as outside in sales and commercial, our industry in general, who don't know what medical affairs does as a function what it is, right? And part of that is we may not be acknowledging our contributions, in ways that people remember and relate to their own benefit.
Tim, just a second, a little bit about this. It's very important, this topic, because we as a medical affairs leaders, we should always strive to show what we do in the field. And sometimes in our companies, we maybe I could say for me, but we're not good sellers sometimes, and we need to sell it in a better way. And selling with outcomes, I think it's the most awesome way to do it. And we should always strive to sell what our teams do and to show the impact finally in the patients.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction, Tim. And I agree with Luz. It is about sort of highlighting, what the team is working on, efforts across the board, and then also what are the outcomes that have come from some of the team, and how does that actually, how does that bubble up to leadership, senior leadership, to understand sort of the role, the pivotal role that medical affairs plays within, pharma organizations.
I want to show the overview here of our panel, and there is an audience poll. When you have a chance, even either now or after this panel, we want to hear some of your feedback and your experiences. Okay, and you can find that in the poll under resources here. I'll just remind you all. There, click on polls here. And we actually numbered them in our session, and we are getting some responses. Oh, great. Okay. But the first question we wanted to know about was, what is the biggest challenge your medical affairs team has in demonstrating the value? That it's difficult to translate medical activity into real outcomes. The second question was, do we have enough access to data to support increased resources? So I know, all of you have worked in with forecasting budget, managing budgets. Can you comment on the resources as well, resource allocation? Because nowadays the investments in medical affairs are continuing to plateau, if not decrease, right? So is measuring performance even more important when the resources are limited?
I'd say it's extremely important to show results for upper leadership whenever they have to decide if you need a new person to come into your team or not. It's that you definitely should support it through something that it's not only goals or ideals, but just something that has a rationale and an outcome with it. And if you can show that with your last team, if you can show that one person actually makes a difference within the different KPIs, then it's even much better to get any resource.
Cross-compliant collaboration was the third question. Ways to demonstrate how we work together, but compliantly, right? Because that's one of the rate limiting steps for medical affairs, based on how we interpret what we can do, and also visualize that, how, because whether or not we have metrics and very detailed metrics in our organizations, how we collaborate ultimately impacts the metrics, right? How quickly we respond to requests on medical information inquiries that come in regarding our products from medical information, right, or from sales. And so that's what we want to kind of also talk about. And I don't think it gets as much attention as it deserves, right? The technical performance and the internal operations, and in a compliant manner. And so, as you saw some of those results there, we need significant improvement in business priorities as well. And one very more detailed question that we have asked, let's look at some of these results, is, do you use your current activity data capturing tool to directly guide any of the following? Seeing goals, let's say, right? None of the above. So I'm not surprised, right? I'm not surprised. And that's maybe a good segue to talk about some of our experiences, because the last 4 companies that I worked in, I was responsible for optimizing the CRM, right? And as well as managing medical insights. And it was very difficult always to get people to be excited about entering more data, right, into the CRM, right? They loved the nature of the job, right? So they feel like they go to the conference, they meet with physicians, they educate them, but then afterwards they have to go back and also capture that, which is very important for the company, but it's not tied to these incentives or to business priorities or even goal setting. So, what has your experience been in your companies, or do you use that information in the CRM to manage or to inform your goals and strategy or decisions?
Hey, Tim,
And silence.
I could
Oh,
speak to this a little
okay.
bit. I don't know if somebody was going to jump in there. It seemed like, Luz, you're going to say something, but in general, right, the organizations as they're scaling, growing, more virtual as well as, kind of growing from country to country, there's a need to have continuity and be synchronous across all the different teams. And when there are, medical, either conferences or if you're, connecting with KOLs, to have that sort of in a central platform, I think is extremely valuable. We know that we're in a sort of email Armageddon at this time, right? Everyone would love to be at inbox zero, but that doesn't happen, right? So everybody has all these inbox emails flying in and out, but having a local and basically secure area to attach these efforts is large, and I think it could definitely help improve the efficiency for these organizations, especially as you have employees that are growing, going up the ladder. You're expanding into new countries, and so having anything to be able to tie into that, and I think it's a little bit simplistic to say it's a CRM, because we do know CRMs are great for sales, but not for anything else unless you really have a dedicated IT team, which costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to actually change. So I think having that central platform for logging those activities is crucial.
If I can just add to that,
Oh,
working at a
yeah.
global. Hi.
Hello,
Sorry, I
Natasha.
just joined. I just heard
Sure.
the
Yeah.
question. I think that, I was working in sales many years ago, and plotting that into the system, you needed to understand how it and what it was used for. So I think, the essence of it is for Salesforce and medical science liaisons to really understand why they're doing this so that the quality they put in is something that can be used. In the end, when we look at from a local and from a global level, it's of no use unless you've got a good AI tool to help filter out. But those insights that come in are incredibly valuable. These are the voices of our customers, and they are essential for us. So it doesn't work unless it's done in the right way. It has to have that good connection point, that good evaluation. And in the end, you need a human to really sift through what's just data and what are insights.
To build on my own personal experience, trying to make that capturing tool of performance meaningful for our teams when I was training and looking for adoption, I provided a very detailed analysis of my 1 year data and showed openly to the team what I had done well, what I hadn't done well, and my steps based on that data in the CRM, 10 steps that I was planning to take next year as I was setting my own personal goals in my territory, right? Uh, and that was my attempt to kind of merge the performance data, the CRM that no one is excited about, even myself, even though I managed it, I know the value of it, right? But unless you tie it to some, you have to find a way to make it exciting, right? And so the latest benchmarking report has shown that most companies, 51 companies that were surveyed by this nonprofit medical affairs professional society, show that they do not analyze how their activities lead to outcomes, and they don't guide their decision making. Most of these pharma companies, which leaves a function once again that's very undervalued, and based on how we ourselves communicate our performance data. And so, while we traditionally equate metrics with expectations accountability, we are avoiding tying them to a workflow, to understanding more accurately all the different activities in these complex roles where usually medical affairs professionals don't just do one type of activity throughout the day, but many different kinds, and they have to understand how to prioritize them. And before I will share a new approach and a decision assistant platform called ANCORA that is now available, I want to share what my lessons have been. Over the 20 years and across 7 different companies, I've seen that most organizations use numbers, many different numbers and metrics to measure our external performance, but pictures to tell stories that are left to many different interpretations on internal operations, right? And they're separated, right? And without any continuous input, right? Even though both of them predict success of an organization or of a launch, right? Whether or not you work well with clinical development, with sales, determines how likely you are to meet those goals, right? And so it's not surprising to see some of the recent trends where there are large corporations, large pharma companies that have laid off many thousands of employees because of incorrect forecasting, inaccurate forecasting, right? Because we don't have as much accurate visibility of the line of sight into internal operations, which also drive performance. And I know personally dozens, if not more, professionals who are seniors and executives in the field uh, who are now struggling because of this and looking for different opportunities, right? And are making transitions because of necessity or inertia, right? And so the next generation perspective is to merge both the technical performance with customers and internal operations using numbers, using data, right? To have more continuous real-time input and to build a continuous quality improvement system. The recent experience that I had was in a company that had a type 1 diabetes product, first in class, and it was bombarded by lots of questions from all over the world in medical information, right? And we weren't able to fulfill these questions. And the department only had two KPIs, two general KPIs. Okay. What we did was we added more KPIs. We analyzed performance in detail and created one master central database where we consolidated information from the call center, from various different spreadsheets on inquiries, and communicated that performance much more frequently, which allowed medical affairs, field medical, to work and be more accountable for their performance and work closer with medical information, which led to increases in the number of inquiries that we were fulfilling, right? And there's data that shows that in terms of the output, the overall output and value of medical affairs, what we help in avoiding side effects, avoiding serious adverse events, hospitalizations, increasing treatment access, treatment adherence, right? Facilitating patient access to because of those information letters that were now sent out, where we had 41% of the inquiries that were fulfilled, we increased that to 100% fulfillment rate of the information, which ultimately guides medical decisions, right? And it was done with 10 less average hours, FTE hours. Okay. So with that, I want to go over a case study to preview this new app, okay, ANCORA. And I'm going to ask my co-panelists, to provide some comments on what features they think are relevant and the potential uses. 6 years ago, I wrote an article on medical productivity index, which weighted activities as well as outcomes and described their relationship more directly than really ever attempted before. It distributes accountability between internal colleagues and customers, for between performance and operations as well. So this is an exciting moment here because the outcome for this application is for it to translate our daily contributions into our purpose, right? Scale our patient and business outcomes and eliminate some of that burden, the bias in terms of how we enter data. So it addresses the needs of that were outlined in the global industry benchmarking report. So you log in right now as a team lead, okay, in this organization that recently launched a product in March. We have 6 months of test data so far that has been evaluated. But then it encounters a safety concern based on insights in the field, safety concerns in the clinical studies from investigators as well as from KOLs. And one of the features of ANCORA is to be able to measure the impact of performance in real time, which means that, as you can see here, I stopped the video. As a team lead, you're able to rank different activities based on impact points and set standards on which you can improve moving forward. And as you can see here, you can filter for various different functions which have their own specific activity types. So it's not a count of activities, but the impact of those activities. So going back to that safety analysis, case study, you're able to see how the team is responding to these reactive types of questions, medical information and inquiries. And the way you enter data is very simple. You can add new activities, assign them impact points, and break them down into particular types of interactions. Are they internal? Are they external? Okay. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit. And what you see is everyone's relative performance, in terms of activity, right? And you can compare their growth over time as well. Actionability, right? So how are they handling these concerns with safety? How many new insights are they getting compared to interactions? What you can see on the right is also the insight to outcomes, the ratio of insights to outcomes. And so in this case, you have to train many different internal colleagues as well, right? You have to train sales reps to understand the ramifications, create FAQ documents to address the safety issues. And the corporate contribution index allows you to see not only the effort in terms of the impact, but also the their outcomes, which are also weighed based on very different factors such as reach, duration, right? Alignment to objective. What you see on those there is a view of which of the different teams are contributing to which objective. Okay. Seeing all team members' performance in one central platform. I want to ask you to comment on some of the screens that we'll see here. Okay. And in terms of this safety concern issue, because when a safety issue happens, everyone's involved, right? In medical affairs, safety, pharmacovigilance, you're able to see in a this type of a solution everyone's contributions, right? To address them, to create new studies, right?
Tim, I want to add and second your thoughts on this. This is a great way because most of our CRMs, usually when you have this type of case study, like a safety issue, they don't show the actual outputs of other collaborators. For example, if pharma was involved, if medical writing was involved, usually they don't show all of the efforts of all these different groups. And if you can customize this to show absolutely everything or everyone's under compliance, obvious reasons, under compliance guidelines, that you can show everyone who actually was involved in a strategy to respond to a safety issue. I think this is a good way to actually show the impact of what your strategy was within a company. So it's great that you can actually show everyone's effort, not only just the people who are out there on the field talking to doctors.
Mm-hmm. So the outcomes, so collaboration, on outcomes is what I think you're talking about, and these screens are kind of illustrating some of the potential outcomes in this case study, like the pharmacokinetic, a PK study that may identify genomic difference in how a particular patient population, metabolizes that drug as a result causing safety issues, or after they address some of these concerns, some of the team members distribute sentiment, KOL sentiment surveys, right after this formal group presentation, for example. And so in this case, for example, there's a team member in field medical affairs, Philip Romano, who delivers a formal group presentation and and captures a certainty level, based on data science principles of how likely it is that that activity led to that outcome. Right? And in this case, it's a correlation. It led to positive, favorable KOL sentiment, for example. Right? And there's more corporate and kind of strategic outcomes that are related here, such as REMS strategy after FDA Type C meeting, potentially, which multiple different team members can link to the same outcome, which is currently just not done, and not easily seen or visible, and going back to my time in medical affairs as well, simply because the data is not captured consistently and by everyone. So, viewing the team collaboration, Alex, as with management consulting experience, how are you able to assign numbers to management consulting? Is it possible? And why? Why is that important? Viewing team collaboration.
Yeah, well, I think at the baseline level, you have to show sort of the value of having, such large teams and teams working on such, kind of onerous or, work intensive, hour intensive areas. So I think that there's a lot, and again, it'd be interesting to hear sort of your thoughts on how much updates or differences there could be between organizations for some of these metrics, but definitely, when you're assessing folks, performance across teams, it's very helpful if you can, um, you know, turn that into a numerical value. But again, there is a little bit of a worry of, is this activity going to match the outcome? And, will the effort be graded on that outcome? So I think there's some challenges there, but I think overall, just providing that transparency and having an area of being able to show that the team is working together on these, very challenging efforts is extremely important, especially if you look at it from a global organization perspective.
There are different examples here, one of which was an educational grant. Just to build on that safety example, right? There's an educational grant that one of the team members inducted, as a result of which there was a screening program for that mutation. Right? And so that was one of the examples of an outcome. What you're seeing here is the flow of the approval, right? So here, the team lead goes back in and approves an outcome on which multiple different team members collaborated. So you may think that you caused that activity, that outcome to happen, but the team lead may not agree, right? So there is that kind of flow as well. So not all the control is taken away from the team leadership, but there's continuous communication. Let's, in just a few minutes here, let's talk a little bit about the decisions that this application is built to also improve. Collecting customers. So we're a customer service oriented organization. Our customers being physicians and patients in some cases, fewer than us, right? And so here, this is an example of actually capturing that data, which a lot of the companies are now doing more, but not in a systematic way, not in a way that's shared across the industry. So here you have the chance to build your own standards and get continuous feedback from the very individuals, customers, and collaborators with whom you impact. Okay, based on the interactions the dates that you had with them, serves the purpose of objectivity, because you have a third party that sends out these surveys and you capture that feedback continuously, right? And they receive this kind of an email, this is for the physician, and it tabulates all of these responses into the medical productivity index as well. So where does the decision making come in? Okay, so reducing bias in strategy, and we'll finish with this. The program provides KPI recommendations, okay, a graded level of recommendations on which KPI, which measures to use in the future, based on this very intricate algorithm. Is to remind our team members and leaders to think a little bit more critically about their performance, right? Because you cannot capture an outcome in this system without linking it or tracing it back to an activity. So it's built in a way to encourage users to think about the intent and the purpose of that activity, not just the report activity. Okay, so notifications is really, I think, one of the features that is built in that you can customize to get a sense of collaboration and development. Are you completing the activities? You can set the frequency so that you improve the data integrity. Okay, with which colleagues did you interact with? Asking these types of questions. And finally, the third one is really designed for the team lead, KPI decision and strategy types of notifications. All right, because you're automatically asked by the application to make particular decisions, to review the impact values, the priority for different effects, and change them or set new objectives. So we'll finish with the decision making part, because, and this is the reason why I have classified it as a decision assistant platform. Because think about how much more accurate our forecasts can be, how many more outcomes we can have and report, and how much more collaboration we can report, and save a lot of the time on the back end in order to evaluate our performance, which is based usually on subjective data. This is how we are merging technical performance with internal operations to improve success of the organizations and launch. Jeff, I want to leave the last comment to you very quickly on reducing bias and improving decisions based on this approach.
Yeah, just completely agree with everything that everybody said. This gives us data to make those decisions. In the past, we've really had to rely on what we feel like is effective. Maybe what we've seen if there's been a similar situation, but we don't have all the time hard data to base our decisions on. And so we make biased decisions. And I think a tool like this is very similar. I know you love the sports analogies.
Yeah, oh, you have a good one. Yeah.
But it makes me think about like these elite runners, right? I mean, they're measuring things that haven't been measured in the past. They're looking at their stride length and how much time they spend on each foot and different aspects of their gait, things that go way beyond time. And I think that's the mindset we have to have in medical affairs, that there are things that we can measure more specifically than what we've done up to this point, and that can lead to new data that helps us make better decisions.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a great way to end this session. Thank you for your patience and your attention, everyone. If you have any comments, October 9th at 10 a.m., I'm hosting a Q&A. We can delve into this in more detail. Check your agenda, everyone. Okay?